The Brotherhood of Nod, notorious for using a variety of fearsome weapon systems, from stealth tanks that could attack out of nowhere and disappear without a trace, to obelisks of light with a unique humming sound that signified one's last few seconds of life. But perhaps their most fearsome and disturbing weapons were created through a procedure, divination, a process that did not result in one's death, but instead eternal servitude to the Brotherhood, and most importantly its leader, Kane. Those blessed with divination would become the most feared and lethal combatants to the enemies of Kane, Cyborgs. As with many technologies seen during the Tiberium Wars, their initial origins date back to the Second World War between the Allied powers and Soviet Union. As the war progressed, both sides continued to research and develop new weapon systems, desperate to gain any advantage that could tip the scales in their favor. A Soviet spy discovered that the Allies were developing a new kind of vehicle called the phase transport. Located at an underground research facility in France, Stalin sent his best soldier, Volkov, to infiltrate the facility and steal this vehicle. However, Volkov would not be alone. He would be accompanied by his canine companion, Chitzkoi. Chitzkoi was no ordinary dog. The German Shepherd had been cybernetically enhanced by Soviet scientists. Fitted with artificial leg muscles, Chitzkoi could leap farther compared to an unaugmented dog. This allowed Chitzkoi to attack opponents from a greater distance. Further enhancements enabled Chitzkoi to resist small arms fire that would easily kill a normal attack dog. Volkov and Chitzkoi made their way through the facility, killing both soldiers and scientists alike. Volkov would successfully recover the plans for the phase transport and the vehicle itself, after which Volkov initiated a meltdown of the facility's reactor as he and Chitzkoi made their escape with the prototype tank. Volkov would go on to successfully test the tank's capabilities against the Allies. It was able to bend light around its hull, causing it to phase out of the visible spectrum. As a quick side note, this technology would most likely be used by the Brotherhood of Nod many years later, in the development of their infamous stealth tanks. Volkov would later be called upon to perform the most critical mission of his life. A radical faction of Soviet troops stole a biological weapon and threatened to use it against Allied emplacements. However, this weapon was highly unstable and was just as likely to destroy the Soviets' own forces as well. It was located on an island off the coast of Spain. The Soviets planned to bomb the facility, however, the bioweapon first needed to be neutralized on site. Volkov and a scientist landed on the island after its Tesla defenses had been shut down by missile submarines. Volkov escorted the scientist to the lab in the middle of the island, taking out rogue troops along the way. The scientists entered the lab and neutralized the bioweapon, while Volkov destroyed the SAM sites to make way for the bombers. As the bombers approached, Volkov tried to get as far away from the lab as possible, but it didn't matter, as the planes weren't dropping conventional bombs. After the nuclear strike on the island, a few Soviet troops were sent in to ensure that all had been wiped out. To their surprise, Volkov was there, his body broken and irradiated, but alive, just barely. This would not be the end of Stalin's finest soldier. In fact, it would be his opportunity for a new beginning. Using the knowledge they learned from creating Chitzkoi, Soviet scientists set to work rebuilding Volkov, outfitting him with all manner of cybernetics. From armored plates grafted onto his skin, to mechanical limbs and electrical circuits, and a chip implanted into his brain. The operation was a success. Volkov became the first human cyborg, one that was devoid of all free will, completely obedient to Stalin and the Soviet cause. For his first field test, Volkov, with his canine companion Chitzkoi, were tasked with helping to destroy an alloy production facility in Austria. This facility produced a new armor plating that could be used to make Allied structures almost invulnerable. Volkov and Chitzkoi paradropped in and carved a path of destruction while flanking around the back of the facility. Equipped with a powerful grenade launcher attached to his arm, Volkov could quickly take out infantry and destroy both light and medium armored vehicles. Volkov could fire this launcher at a rapid rate, any recoil being almost negligible to him. The armored plates grafted onto Volkov's body made him nearly immune to all infantry weapons. Even direct hits from tank shells couldn't stop him. Volkov and Chitzkoi made their way to the control center in order to destroy the defenses guarding the alloy facility. This would make it easier for the Soviet strike force to attack it. Reports indicate the Allies' famous commando, Tanya, was there to guard it, but even she would fall to the destructive duo of Volkov and Chitzkoi. With the control center demolished, the strike force successfully destroyed the production facility. In the battle's aftermath, Volkov was powered down and brought back to the lab to await his next mission. In retaliation, the Allies attacked the Soviet lab and captured Volkov, bringing him to their own research facility in Spain. The Soviets couldn't let the Allies learn the secrets of Volkov's construction, and sent a strike force to recover or eliminate the cyborg for good. There are conflicting reports as to exactly what happened during the battle, the true outcome being lost to history. The first report states that the Soviets were able to destroy 4 Allied radar stations that were preventing them from tracking Volkov's location. Once Volkov was found, a scientist was sent in to reactivate him. After reactivation, Volkov was exfiltrated via helicopter transport, and the strike force wiped out the remaining Allied forces in the area. The second report states that the Soviets were unable to locate Volkov before the Allies discovered his control codes. Having deciphered the codes, the Allies activated Volkov, programming him against his former masters, forcing the Soviets to destroy him. The last report states that during the Soviets' attempt to destroy the radar stations and find Volkov, they accidentally destroyed the structure housing the cyborg. This caused Volkov to become unstable and uncontrollable, attacking anyone and everyone, regardless of their faction affiliation. The Soviet commander was then forced to destroy Volkov and any remaining Allied forces in the area. Regardless of the outcome of this Deus Ex Machina operation, the Second World War would soon come to an end, and with that the physical, as well as historical, loss of Volkov and Chitzkoi. However, one man would remember these Frankensteins of Soviet experimentation, and seek to leverage that knowledge to accomplish his own grand ambitions. During the First Tiberium War, Kane sought ways to harness the mutagenic properties of Tiberium in order to bring about the next stage of human evolution. To that end, Kane tasked the Black Hand to carry out this crucial task, operating under the codename Project ReGenesis. With the help of captured GDI scientists, in particular Elena Petrova, Nod was able to create the first of these Tiberium-enhanced humans. The earliest results of this project, and those who, quote, volunteered for it, were the Initiates. However, these were practically useless to the Brotherhood, as they were highly unstable, and barely understood even the most basic commands, due to their low intelligence and processing power. They were immune to the negative effects of Tiberium, though, and could run at high speeds, able to rapidly close distance with their target and engage them in close-quarters combat. The next iteration of these mutants was the Acolyte. Slightly taller, with better combat skills and improved cognitive processing, the Acolyte was a clear step up from the Initiate. Augmented with cybernetic limbs and a metal plate grafted onto its face, the Acolyte was just as capable a soldier as a regular human. Acolytes were typically armed with Mantis Tiberium auto rifles and could execute basic orders from their Nod commanders. The Templars were the final result of this project. Standing at a little over 7 feet tall, or 213 centimeters, the Templars were the ultimate Nod super soldiers, though they appeared to make less use of cybernetic enhancements compared to the Acolytes, with the only indications of such being a breathing apparatus on their face and a few wires along their torso. The Templars were the strongest mutants, with metal armor equipped onto their legs, chest, and shoulders. They could execute complex orders and were quite resistant to most conventional weapons, only being significantly harmed by lasers and the Volt auto rifle. One thing that the Initiates, Acolytes, and Templars all had in common with each other was the ability to heal from Tiberium, making Tiberium-based weapons useless against them. The last Brotherhood member to become a cyborg was the Black Hand's own General Gideon Ravachol. Convinced to undergo the mutation process by Elena Petrova, Ravachol went from being a small but intelligent man to a towering cybernetically enhanced mutant, completely obedient to Dr. Petrova. GDI's Nick Havoc Parker fought Ravachol, surprised at being picked up and thrown around by the now empowered general. Ravachol would even pick up and hurl other Nod soldiers at Havoc. It was a tough fight, but Havoc was able to bring Ravachol down in the end. Havoc would go on to defeat Elena Petrova and destroy Kane's temple at Cairo, putting an end to Project ReGenesis. This victory, however, would not put an end to the Brotherhood's experiments with Tiberium-mutated humans enhanced by cybernetics. While recovering from his injuries sustained during the ion cannon strike on Temple Prime, which brought an end to the First Tiberium War, Kane thought long and hard about how the Brotherhood had been defeated by GDI. Ultimately, he formulated a unique hypothesis. The humanity of his soldiers had been their undoing. Thus, the Prophet concluded, to achieve victory, he would require an army devoid of free will, of love, hate, fear, and regret, of both conscious and consciousness, a legion that would willingly and unquestioningly obey his every command. To that end, Kane initiated the development of an army of emotionless, endlessly malleable, cybernetic warriors that would do his bidding without question. Knowing that such research would cause dissension within the ranks of his existing army, the Prophet sequestered this work in the hinterlands of Russia and China, where few would stumble across the project, and even fewer would be believed if they shared such tales. The first results of this project became visible during the Second Tiberium War, in the form of cyborg infantry and cyborg commandos. Cyborg infantry were brought about through divination, a process that was based off the initial research gained during Project ReGenesis. Nod implemented a controlled infusion of Tiberium into a willing, or unwilling, human's bloodstream, which would mutate their body. This process would also affect the mutants known as the Forgotten. Some aspects of the body would result in a successful mutation, whereas others would not. Those failed aspects would be corrected using cybernetic augmentation, thus creating an obedient and lethal killing machine. One that was not only immune to the negative effects of Tiberium exposure, but could actually gain regenerative effects from the crystals. The cyborg infantry were typically armed with a high-powered pulse rifle, which looked like a minigun on their right arm. On their left arm was a grenade launcher, which is only seen in use during cutscenes, and not used in-game. Cyborgs that lost their lower body during combat would still fight on, using their arms to crawl across the ground in pursuit of their targets. When a cyborg infantry unit is destroyed, it leaves behind shards of Tiberium. Those cyborgs that performed well in combat were further modified, and promoted to the Nod Cyborg Commando ranks. Packing enough firepower to take out an entire base, the Cyborg Commando was a critical threat on the battlefield. The Commando was armed with a plasma weapon. The ball of plasma would instantly kill infantry units and destroy most vehicles in a couple of hits. Even structures were quickly brought down by this weapon. The downside was that it couldn't be used against aircraft, making them the best counter to the Cyborg Commando. Not that these units were easy to bring down. Infantry weapons were practically useless against it. Only cannons or railguns could truly have an effect on the Commando. Just like the Cyborg infantry, the Commando could heal itself in a Tiberium field. And even if its legs were destroyed, the upper body would still fight on. When destroyed, the Cyborg Commando leaves behind Tiberium shards. EMP weapons were most effective against the Cyborgs of Nod. The Cyborgs would be completely shut down by such weapons, buying GDI forces enough time to destroy them before the effects of the EMP wore off. Rumors of another kind of cyborg, known as the Reaper, spread among the civilian populace and ranks of GDI troops. It was supposedly a cyborg torso attached to an all-terrain walker base. However, no one had actually encountered such a unit until shortly after the Second Tiberium War, and it was not the Brotherhood of Nod that would end up fielding such fearsome opponents. Like GDI, the Brotherhood of Nod made use of the Electronic Video Agent, or EVA, artificial intelligence system, to support its commanders and troops during the First Tiberium War. However, Kane saw that Eva, with its limited intelligence and processing power, would be unsuitable for the Brotherhood's long-term goals, and began to create his own AI system. While damaged due to an ion cannon strike, the first vestiges of this new AI were heard by Nick Parker as he made his way through Kane's temple in Cairo.
Computer-assisted biologically augmented life form damaged. Please shut down all non-essential operations.
GDI didn't put much stock into this computer-assisted biologically augmented life form, as it was surely destroyed when the temple exploded. This was in addition to the defeat of the Brotherhood and presumed death of Kane at the end of the war. Of course, Kane had not died, and continued his work on CABAL, possibly incorporating elements of his own psyche into the system, forming the basis of CABAL's personality. By the Second Tiberium War, CABAL was a fully functioning AI assistant, providing communications, tactical advice, and intelligence to Nod's commanders. Kane even ordered CABAL to assist the mutant leader Tratos in deciphering the Tacitus, which may have had an unseen effect on CABAL. Whereas Eva was software, CABAL was more, comprised of a collection of living humans, whose minds were all interconnected, forming a biological processor. These humans were held in suspension tubes located in underground bunkers. Kane would find himself inside one of these tubes, healing from the injuries he sustained during his fight with GDI commander Michael McNeil. After McNeil's assault on Kane's stronghold in Egypt, CABAL's core was disassembled by GDI. Kane's second-in-command and leader of the Black Hand, Anton Slavik, ordered a Nod commander to retrieve the pieces of CABAL's core so that they could reactivate him and restore order to the Brotherhood. The plan worked. CABAL was back online, interfacing and connecting to all the Brotherhood systems, though some within Nod's inner circle still refused to recognize Slavik as their leader. In the meantime, CABAL ordered a Nod commander to assassinate Tratos, who had been working with GDI. The commander accomplished this task. However, this action angered the inner circle, and Slavik.
You ordered the assassination of Tratos without consulting the inner circle.
I gave no such order.
And the Tacitus, Slavik. Do you deny that as well? The Tacitus is here!
Again, I gave no such order.
I gave the orders.
You, CABAL. Why?
The Tacitus is necessary. The extermination of Tratos was necessary.
CABAL, you serve Nod. I am Nod! CABAL, you serve...
Communications are not at optimal conditions due to increased ion particle activity within the lower atmosphere.
With Tratos dead, the only person, or in this case, intelligence, that could decipher the Tacitus was CABAL. With the help of an unnamed commander, GDI's dataless science team found and captured another one of CABAL's cores in Poland. CABAL agreed to help GDI decipher the Tacitus, once a missing segment of the data matrix had been recovered. After succeeding in acquiring this segment, Dr. Boudreau and the dataless team began to interface it with the Tacitus. At around the same time, Nod's inner circle made the decision to deactivate CABAL, as he was believed to be too unstable without Kane around to control it. Little did they know, CABAL was, in a sense, with Kane, and would never allow them to deactivate him.
CABAL, do not forget I was the one who had you reactivated. And I can just as easily have you deactivated.
Which you will, Slavik. CABAL cannot stand against Nod. It cannot...
The Brotherhood is an evolutionary dead end. I am the only salvation for the continued supremacy of Nod. It is my world now.
CABAL, stand down. Deactivate CABAL at once. I repeat, shut him down!
Listen to the sounds of your own extinction, human. It begins.
Gabriella, get out of there! Now! Eva 86 protocol. CABAL, what the hell?
Contact with on-site team has been lost. Multiple signals closing in on their location.
Clarify what kind of signals. CABAL, what are...
Cortez, consider this the overture to my symphony. The culling is at hand, human. The culling.
Stand down, CABAL. I order...
You do not order me to do anything. Nod was incapable of recovering the second segment. You have done so, as I orchestrated from the beginning. Humans, as ever, are easily herded.
Eva, can we shut it down?
Analyzing all known data.
I will save your primitive machine the effort. To answer your question, no. The second segment is in place. Behold my children. Listen to the screams. Listen. That is the sound of your extinction.
Cabal's rebellion against humanity had begun. All cyborgs within the Brotherhood came under his control, and immediately began attacking everyone. GDI, Nod, mutants, civilians. Cabal discriminated against no one. All were equally targeted and either killed or captured, their bodies to be used in his cyborg army. After exfiltrating Dr. Boudreaux and the Daedalus science team, the GDI commander, under orders from Lieutenant General Paul Cortez, set about destroying Cabal's core. Only this one wasn't the AI's actual core, but a relay station. While they didn't know the exact location of Cabal's core, GDI's Eva discovered the location of Cabal's next major strike, the city of Trondheim in Norway. The GDI commander was sent there to take control of the military base nearby, and warn the civilian and mutant population of Cabal's arrival. But he was too late. The base was already being raided by Cabal's forces, and among them were the Cyborg Reapers. The Reaper was a terrifying sight. A human head attached to a cyborg torso, with 4 legs, giving it all-terrain capabilities. This included walking over the veins of veinhole monsters, without agitating the creature and causing it to attack them. Attached to the upper back of the Reaper was a net launcher. As its name suggests, this weapon would launch a net at infantry units, tying a squad of them to the ground, rendering them immobile and unable to fight back. These immobilized troops could then be finished off by the Reaper's dual rocket launchers, one on each arm. These launchers could also target aircraft, acting as mobile anti-air weapons. Like other cyborgs, Reapers could heal themselves in Tiberium fields, and would leave behind Tiberium crystals upon death. Most infantry captured by the Reapers wouldn't be killed. Instead, they'd be hauled back to one of Cabal's factories to be turned into cyborgs. After warning the local populace of Cabal's impending strikes on his own, the GDI commander received reinforcements and retook the raided base. From there, he commanded his forces to rescue captured civilians and troops from the nearby cyborg production facility in order to stop Cabal from growing his army. Cabal's rebellion killed all members of Nod's inner circle, except Anton Slavik. Thanks to the Black Hand's distrust of cyborgs, Slavik survived to lead the Brotherhood. Slavik ordered a Nod commander to retrieve one of GDI's EVA units to replace the traitorous Cabal. The EVA pinpointed the location of the rogue AI's core, and the Nod commander led a strike force to destroy it. However, they soon found out this core was just a decoy, and a barrage of cluster missiles wiped out the commander's strike force. GDI and the Brotherhood soon realized that the only way for them to defeat Cabal was to work together. The two factions agreed to a ceasefire and shared all intelligence data in order to pinpoint the location of Cabal's primary core. While they succeeded in finding it, they first had to destroy Cabal's ancillary cyborg production facility and disrupt the AI's Tiberium harvesting operations. Nod would handle the harvester hunting, while GDI would take down the production facility. Doing so would involve the use of a captured cyborg to infect the facility with a virus.
The Daedalus team and I have implanted one of Cabal's cyborgs with a virus that will infect his production stations.
Commander, your target area is a cyborg processing facility. We need you to get that cyborg into that complex.
Yes. Once inside the facility, the modified cyborg can be interfaced with Cabal's system and infect the production cycle.
GDI forces successfully escorted the infected cyborg to Cabal's communication network. The infected network caused Cabal's cyborgs to turn on each other, after which GDI forces destroyed the production facility, clearing the way for the final assault on Cabal's primary core. Assaulting the core proved difficult, as it was protected by a Firestorm generator, the designs of which Cabal had acquired while he was interfaced with GDI's network before the rebellion. Taking control of 3 communication systems in the area would bring the generator down, but the Nod and GDI commanders had to deal with a few more specialized defenses. The first of these was the Cabal Obelisk, which looked very similar to the original obelisk used by the Brotherhood during the first Tiberium War. While not as powerful as Nod's Obelisk of Light, The Cabal obelisk had a shorter cooldown time, enabling it to strike targets more frequently. The structure had greater armor too, making it difficult to destroy. It could only engage ground targets, and so was vulnerable to aircraft. At least it would be, had it not been supported by the Obelisk of Darkness. This unique-looking obelisk was taller than all the others and acted as Cabal's primary anti-air defensive structure. It had a high rate of fire and could down an Orca bomber in a couple of shots. The Obelisk of Darkness was also heavily armored, so much so that it could survive a direct strike from GDI's ion cannon. The final ace up Cabal's sleeve was the Core Defender. The Defender was a seemingly harmless structure sitting next to Cabal's core, but once activated, it transformed into a gigantic robot walker. This walker was armed with a pair of laser weapons, one on each arm. These lasers would instantly destroy any infantry or vehicular unit, and bring most space structures crumbling to the ground in just a couple of blasts. It could crush any and everything beneath its feet, and was incredibly damage resistant. Though the Defender was Cabal's ultimate weapon, it was not invincible. Enough concentrated firepower would eventually bring the walker down. Alternatively, if the robot could be tricked into crossing a bridge, then blowing up the bridge beneath its feet would instantly send the monstrosity to a watery grave. As formidable as Cabal's last line of defenses were, they were ultimately unable to stop the combined might of GDI and Nod's forces. Cabal's core was destroyed, bringing his rebellion to an end. While Anton Slavik celebrated this victory against the single greatest threat to the Brotherhood, GDI recovered the Tacitus from the core's wreckage, and the dataless science team immediately began extracting and deciphering all the data they could from it. As for Cabal, the last vestiges of his consciousness went to the only place it could go, Kane himself.
My vision has permutated. My plans have followed a path unpredicted by the union of Nod and GDI.
Our directives must be reassessed.
In the aftermath of the Firestorm Crisis, the Brotherhood of Nod removed all cyborgs from their arsenal, and put a halt to any research related to cybernetics. Anton Slavik remained leader of the Brotherhood for a short time, barely holding the faction together. After Slavik's assassination, the Brotherhood would again splinter into quarreling sub-factions, with one Brother Marcion becoming the new leader of the Black Hand. Under Marcion, the Black Hand made use of a couple of advanced robots in their arsenal. This included the Mantis droid as a mobile anti-air vehicle, and the Purifier war mech. While not cyborgs in and of themselves, the Black Hand loathes such soulless machines. The Purifier generated the most controversy, which Marcion quelled by having each mech blessed by an abbot before marching onto the battlefield. As for the Global Defense Initiative, they continued to hunt down and destroy Cabal's hidden bunkers, the last one being demolished on May 28, 2043. One of the more unusual chapters of the Second Tiberium War came to an explosive close yesterday, as the GDI Corps of Engineers detonated what is believed to be the last remaining Cabal bunker, the tube-filled underground layers from which the rogue artificial intelligence waged brief war upon humanity. Contacted for comment, retired war hero and former head of the Bureau of Mutant Affairs, General Paul Cortez, lauded for his role in Cabal's defeat, dismissed his fallen foe as a second-rate Eva with a goatee and a Napoleon complex. Cortez also claimed to have refused a GDI invitation to attend the detonation ceremony, citing his opposition to the current leadership's controversial Tiberium containment policy and weak-kneed approach to the Brotherhood of Nod. Rumors that this particular bunker displayed evidence of human or humanoid life forms in suspension capsules were quickly dismissed by GDI spokesperson Arlene Shepard. Sometime before the year 2034, Kane had emerged from stasis. Cabal was no more, but the memory of Cabal still lived on in Kane himself. Kane would use this knowledge to create an artificial life form, far superior to anything that had come before, Legion. Over the next decade, Kane would use Legion to command his forces and reunite the fractured Brotherhood. During the Third Tiberium War, Legion assisted Nod commanders in their fight against GDI and the invading Skrin. Legion was almost brought down by Kane's own abbess, Alexa Kovacs, who infected it with a virus as she feared it would become another Cabal if allowed to connect with the Tacitus.
I will not
What have you done?
It was turning against you! It was taking control!
You doubt me?
Legion would arise in the year 2052, 5 years after the Third War. Ecstatic, Kane gave Legion the task of awakening his hidden cyborg army, the Marked of Kane. Hidden in underground bunkers in Russia and Southeast Asia, the Marked of Kane had been dormant since the Second Tiberium War. The last vestiges of Kane's initial project, commissioned after the First War, to create an army completely loyal to him alone. Luckily for both GDI and the Brotherhood, this sleeping cyborg army was unknown to CABAL during his rebellion, having remained disconnected from the Brotherhood's primary communication and control network. To activate this army, Legion had to capture 4 cybernetic control nodes while avoiding GDI patrols supported by a nearby base. Once Legion had captured the nodes, the Marked of Kane awakened, exiting their underground bunkers and laying waste to all GDI forces in the region. The cyborgs that made up the Marked of Kane were the Awakened and the Enlightened. Both were armed with an EMP emitter on their right arm, which was useful at temporarily shutting down ground vehicles and structures. The Awakened specialized as anti-infantry units, fitted with a machine gun on their left arm. The Awakened still bore some traces of humanity in their desiccated flesh, unlike the Enlightened, who were almost entirely cybernetic. The Enlightened moved slower, but were much stronger than the Awakened, able to withstand direct hits from tank rounds without breaking stride. The Enlightened were equipped with a particle beam weapon on their left arm, which could be upgraded to a supercharged beam, increasing the damage they dealt to any and all who dared to oppose them. Enlightened could have their movement speed improved with cybernetic legs. These legs could be fitted to Tiberium troopers and saboteurs as well. Tiberium troopers themselves were cybernetically enhanced, in order to handle the heavy armor they wore, and to carry the 2 large liquid Tiberium containment tanks on their backs. With the activation of the Marked of Kane, came the discovery of a new support power called Redemption. Any human militant rocket, or militia squad who was killed within this black and orange field would be reanimated as an awakened cyborg. This support power gave standard Nod divisions access to this otherwise Marked of Kane exclusive unit. With the Marked of Kane now under Legion's control, Kane ordered Legion to recover the Tacitus from GDI's Rocky Mountain research facility in the United States. Legion had to do so quickly, as GDI's experiments on the Tacitus had caused it to become dangerously unstable. The risk of losing the data matrix forever was high, and failure was not an option. So important was Legion's task that the Black Hand, who had always mistrusted cyborgs, joined forces with the Marked of Kane to help with the retrieval. With the combined might of the Black Hand and Marked of Kane, Legion's forces broke through GDI's defenses and recovered the Tacitus. Now back in Kane's hands, and still dangerously unstable, the only option was for Legion to interface with the Tacitus, and unlock the Brotherhood's future with
one vision, one purpose.
After a long and bloody history of trying to create effective and efficient cyborgs, completely devoid of human emotion and free will, it seems that success, at least in the eyes of Kane, had finally been achieved. Cyborgs would once again be an integral aspect of the Brotherhood of Nod, though one can't help but wonder if the loyalty of these cyborgs, and perhaps even Legion itself, will truly last under the legacy of CABAL.